Pit, Chapter 16, Wanda's Warning. Chad strained his ears for more, but the men passed on and their voices died away. I wish I knew where they're going and what they're after, he said. Think it's safe to get out of this water, Jan? My feet are pretty near frozen. Jan agreed that they might get out, and, having done so, they went on slowly. The last thing they wanted was to catch up with the enemy. Not that they knew which way the others had gone. Chad wished devoutly that he did. By this time, Chad was longing for rest. He had been going hard for about 16 hours, and that climb up the shaft had taken a lot out of him. Strong as he was, he badly needed supper and bed. Clive, too, was limping. At last they came to the Badger Brook, and, though they could not see the house, knew they were within half a mile of it. Jan went more carefully than ever. The bay showed dimly in front, and, at the top of it, the bridge of the Badger Brook. But Jan would not let them go down. Like as not, them fellows is waiting underneath, he said. We can't stay here all night, Jan. Let's go on quietly. If they are beneath the bridge, we can be over and past before they catch us. Jan objected, but at last it was agreed that they should go down to the bridge on hands and knees, crawling among the heather. Chad led, and had just reached the clump of gorse nearest the bridge when he almost fell over someone crouched there. He made a violent grab and heard a little cry of pain. "You, Wanda?" he gasped in utter amazement. "Oh, I'm so glad to see you," said Wanda in a quick, low voice. "I've been lying here ever so long waiting for you. Those horrid men, I saw them from my window, prowling about in the garden, and somehow I felt sure they were the ones that had carried off Jan, so I slipped out the back way." "It was jolly plucky of you," Chad said warmly. You wouldn't say so if you'd known how scared I was," Wanda answered. "And I was worse scared when I heard them coming straight towards the wall. I dropped down behind and simply didn't breathe. Then I heard them talking, and presently came to understand that they'd had you in some sort of prison, that you'd got away, and that they were after you. They knew you had to get into the house, so they were going to wait outside till you came, then grab you." "Where are they now?" Chad asked. "Under the wall to the south of the house." "Then if we go round by the north side, we can get in at the back door without their seeing us." "That's what I was thinking," Wanda said. "And arter that I'll have summat to say to 'em," Jan remarked grimly. Luck was with the boys. Another heavy shower came on, and it was so dark that they, Wanda and Jan, were able to walk over the bridge without a chance of being seen. Once under the north wall, they were safe from sight, and within a few minutes they reached the back door. Wanda had the key, but before she could put it in the lock, the door opened, and there was Rachel. "Oh, my dear man," cried Rachel, and without paying the least attention to anyone else, flung her arms around Jan's neck and kissed him on both cheeks. Jan was scandalized. "What be about, Rachel? Don't ye see the young gentleman is wet to the bone?" "We're all right, Rachel," said Chad. Whereupon Rachel let Jan go and hugged him. "It was you got Jan back for me, Mr. Chad, and you too, Mr. Clive. I'm surely grateful." Jan cut in. "Rachel, where be my gun? Them nasty chaps is outside this minute, and I'm bound to prison 'em." He caught sight of his old double barrel in the corner of the kitchen, and snatched it up and ran out. The boys, tired as they were, followed. The shower had passed, and it was lighter. But when they got to the place where Ben and Jake had been hiding behind the wall, there was no sign of them. "Scared and gone," said Clive. Jan was bitterly disappointed. He wanted to follow, but Chad persuaded him that this was foolish. "They're half a mile away already," he said. "But however did they know?" Jan demanded. "Torgan warned them," said the quick-witted Clive. "His window faces the front of the house." "Torgan, aye. Likely you're right, Mr. Clive. Us'll settle with that gent in the morning." He turned, and they went back to the house to find that Rachel had a good fire in the kitchen range and was busy cooking. "You go right up and change," she ordered the boys. "Supper'll be ready time ye comes down. You too, Jan." 10 minutes later they all sat down in the kitchen to hot soup, cold beef and pickles, bread, butter and cake, and while they ate, they told Wanda and Rachel all their adventures of the past 12 hours. Wanda's pretty face grew quite pale as Chad described his climb out of the mine and his visit to the blowing house for the rope. So you see, Chad ended, we were right about Torgan. There's no doubt at all that he is at the bottom of the whole business. But what would he want with Jan, Mr. Chad? Rachel asked in a puzzled voice. To get him out of the way, Rachel. Same with us. Dad shall send him packing tomorrow morning, Wanda said firmly. He ought to go to prison, Jan declared, but Chad shook his head. Probably he ought, Jan, but we have no proof against him. Wanda was looking thoughtful. Now she spoke. I don't know how Mr. Torgan came to know of the treasure, yet it seems pretty plain that he is at the back of all this. What seems plainest of all is that he's found it. Chad's eyes widened. Found it? He repeated. Yes, put in Clive quickly. Wanda's right. He must have found it for. If he hadn't, what was the use of getting rid of us? Don't you see, he wanted us out of the way so that he could cart the stuff off without being disturbed. You're right, Clive, said Chad eagerly. Then before Torgan goes, we must have the truth from him. Jan nodded. Aye, us'll do that, Mr. Chad. But disappointment was in store for all of them. When they got up next morning, Torgan had gone. He had left before daybreak in his car. In his room they found a note saying that he had been called away. All his things were gone. He had not left even an address. That's the end of chapter 16. Good night.